Jacob, can you hear us on Zoom? Jacob? Oh, good. Okay.
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
All right. My name is Eric Alexander. Susan Meany, our chair, is not here tonight, so we'll try to muddle through in her absence. I know, I've got it right. I'll get through that. I'll need your help. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is the regular meeting of the Town of Washington Planning Board. We do have a quorum. So with that, we will rise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I ask the members of the board if everyone's had received and a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting.
Yes.
Any changes?
No.
So that I'd like a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Passes unanimously. Okay.
Who's recording it?
You know what? I'm going to record the motion. So can you just, who was the,
I made the motion.
Okay.
I second it.
Okay.
We'll give you time to do it.
Thanks. That's okay.
Okay, we have a number of matters before us today. We'll start with Schmidt and Conway. We'll ask the representative, someone here representing, why don't you come forward? And please bring some chairs up and we'll let you update us on your thoughts since the last meeting, and then we'll open up the public meeting.
Chairs over there already. I guess the good news was that the wetlands consultant actually gave us a very nice letter that seems to be in favor if we do certain things to mitigate the site. And we're absolutely willing to do all of those things.
Right. They recommended dry wells, rain gardens, and not excessive, but herbaceous vegetation along the pond edge, and anything that would inhibit flow down the site towards the pond. So those, and also wanted to make sure I gave you the affidavit of publication.
Also, one thing you all mentioned that I should have spoken up when we were here last. They have a big piece of property, and in terms of any soils that come out of digging, that'll be taken off and filled in other parts of the property, and nothing is going to be allowed to go toward the stream.
So when you do that excavation, you will remove this soil. You won't place it there. You'll remove it entirely.
Correct.
What's the distance to the stream from the site?
60 feet was the closest.
The pond, actually. which is-
Yes, the pond, correct.
Yeah, I know.
It matches
I
the
know.
existing
Okay.
house distance. The addition of the putting on is no closer
Mhm.
to the pond than the house.
Correct.
Right.
Did you see the CAC letter that they sent to the planning board?
We did.
Do you have any comments about that?
That was not so good.
They were, many of their comments, I think, were taken without context of our last meeting and without the letter from Tim Miller, because then they mentioned, well, first I was hoping we could perhaps get clarification, because they mentioned on the ERF viewer that there are significant natural communities, but using that same mapper, none were visible. I could show, based on the site, anything in orange would be considered that. And
And what about on the NRI then? Did there show any wildlife or endangered species on the wildland, the NRA
no,
mapping?
I went through the federal, I went through the DEC, and I'm sorry, this is the DEC and the NRI, and none of them came up. So I would be interested to see where they found that information so we could address it. But in respect to, they'd also mentioned that it's a Class C stream with T for the trout That is something that we have to look into in respect to the New York State DEC, because that would make it a unusual importance, and that might therefore require the DEC permit as well.
Sure, that's true, but
Oh, you know,
so
okay.
regarding the CEC comments, I spoke to Steve today. I suggested he respond formally to those if he doesn't mind. I think he's going to, but we had a conversation about some of the stuff. Regarding the trout stream, I think what he said was that the requirement is that the water be kept cool, because this is a pond, so, and it was a man-made pond. So, I mean, the only thing you can really do in this case is try to keep new water from getting there. And if they're proposing the rain gardens and the dry wells, per his recommendations, to control runoff coming off the house, the new parts of the house, that should prevent any runoff from getting into the pond, and it shouldn't really be an issue. And it's such a small addition that, you know, concerns about habitat shouldn't, as long as those things are followed, it shouldn't be an issue. The other thing was about the DEC's new regulations on wetlands and whether or not this would be jurisdictional to them. He doesn't believe it would be, based on the fact that it's not, it's below 12.4 acres. The requirement is 12.4 acres or above, unless it has unusual importance. And he didn't see anything that in his review that would make it unusually important. The trout stream issue is, again, we comment on that, but reviewing the wetland, the states mapper, the NRI maps, which I looked at originally, and he saw my comments, and he there was nothing else he had to add to those. There's riparian habitat around there, but I think if you propose, again, the recommendations he had about having some vegetation planted along the pond edge that could recreate more of a riparian habitat there too, and you know, just kind of strengthen the system there. So we talked about it. I think he's going to respond to the CAC. I suggested that he do, but I don't know if he will between this meeting and the next. But I think what we're looking for is on the plan set, showing those stormwater controls, showing the stormwater erosion control during construction too. Like if you're going to have silt fencing, just as a preventative measure for erosion running in during construction would be important to show also. So he wanted to see all that. And then he'll comment again, I think, on its adequacy. But you do have a public hearing.
Right, do you have any other comments?
That was really it. Summarizing Steve's comments.
We'll open the public hearing.
And also, what about the plantings that they recommended too? But those should also be on the drawing,
Yeah, the planting
everything
strip.
that they recommended.
Yeah, I think you should try to accommodate those comments and submit another site plan drawing
Sure.
that has all that on there.
I would just like to discuss a broader issue. So the code says that we shouldn't go along with this proposed site plan. Issue a permit if there is a reasonable alternative. And the CAC suggested a reasonable alternative by building on the other side of the house away from the pond. That seems reasonable. But what makes me think the opposite of that is that you're not encroaching on the pond anymore anyway. So what's the difference? I mean, there is no difference. And your objection you had about the excavation, they seem to have
There's a question.
question you had about the excavation and what would happen with the runoff of silt into the stream was a good one. But I see that they've mitigated that as well. So just to have those comments.
That was one other thing that I had in my memo that Steve also mentioned. I think the CAC brought it up. The septic system is there now. If you can
Yes.
show that on the drawings.
It is, we'll place it on the drawing, but it is north and east, so it's up the hill out of the wetlands.
There's no new bedrooms.
No, we are replacing in kind both one bedroom and one bathroom.
So for that reason, it's probably fine.
Okay.
The septic side.
I think we had talked about that at the last
Yeah.
meeting, that there was probably no need to address that, to change anything. about
But
that.
having it on the plans. helpful.
Sure.
So,
You have anything else you want to share before we open the public hearing?
No.
Okay, so can I have a motion to open the public hearing?
So moved.
Second? Second. Okay, does anyone from the public online or here have any comments, questions, or thoughts on this? Howard?
Have a comment, CAC. We've normally tried, if there was
an alternative, that was the purpose of the language being put in there, otherwise you didn't need that language. Not that you can mitigate on in the wetland, that was supposed to take precedent if there was a reasonable alternative, and we felt there was a reasonable alternative to go on the other side. That's why when we wrote that letter that you had. And we'd like you to consider that. That's for your consideration. That's, I think, what we just discussed. No, but I'm saying a little more strongly. Okay, go ahead. That language was put in there specifically so that you don't go in the wetlands unless there was no other place to go. Not that you can say I mitigated going into the wetland. The purpose of that language when it was put in there, and I was around when they put that language in there, so I can speak a little bit for historical purposes. Was put in there so that people do not go in the wetlands if they have an alternative that they could use instead. Okay. And that was why the CAC mentioned that again. And that's up to you to consider. You know, you can say, no, I don't want to consider that, but that's the purpose of that section of code. So that you, if possible, you can do it elsewhere. It's not that it's the best one that you, the applicant, wants. It's can you do this basic project elsewhere? That's what the language was put in there for. Okay, thank you. Anything else? Since there's more coming in, do we want to keep the public hearing open or do we want to close it? Is anyone online? Jacob, Margaret, anyone online have a comment on this or question?
I think I should make sure nobody's waiting to be admitted to the
That's a good
Zoom
idea.
because of, so.
I think that's a good idea.
No comment.
If we keep, is there anything required to keep the meeting open?
Well, they're gonna resubmit and Steve's gonna relook at it, see if he's satisfied with what, if they addressed his comments. I'll take a look at it too.
I think the Zoom is on mute. There's no audio.
So you should say on the record the date of the continued public hearing, just so it's clear that it's at the next meeting. You don't need a motion if you didn't close anything, but at least it'll be on the record.
So we'll continue the Schmidt Conway public hearing at the May 6th meeting. Thank you.
May 6th.
Yes. All right, please introduce yourself and again, if you don't mind.
Sure. I'm Brendan Johnson with Johnson Surveying, and I'm representing Millbrook Special Farm. Essentially, we're trying to subdivide a 21-acre piece out of a 205-acre parcel. To date, let's see, this is the third meeting, I think, second on the public hearing. So I know there were some questions about house sites and buildability and view sheds and all of that. I think we addressed those mostly. We submitted a plan with a possible house site and driveway location. We did have a site meeting 2-3 weeks ago. I forget when, but and showed the possible house site and where it would be and how it would be viewed from other locations. And then we looked at the potential of crossing a temporary or intermittent stream, an overflow stream. And Steve Marino, your wetland consultant, was out there with us. And yeah, so that's pretty much where we stand. I know I submitted some like housekeeping items to Aaron. I'm just revising the application and I forget what else I submitted, but
Yeah, so last meeting you submitted the plan that showed the possible, or what we're calling the possible house location and the possible driveway, right, on the plan?
yes.
And then after that, you submitted it, a couple of application pieces that we wanted you to correct, which have been done. The agricultural data statement and noting the correct zoning district on the application, minor things. Those were done. The big thing that happened since last meeting was we did have a site walk where it was myself, Susan, Richard was there, and Steve Marino met us there, and the applicant's rep, Brendan, was there. We went to the exact spot of the possible house location. It was staked out. It's a cleared area currently. What the applicant submitted also was their best attempt at matching up the scenic view shed layers from the town's mapping to their plat, so that we could see like where is this going to be located? Is it within like the buildable or buildable within view shed layers? And what they're showing is it's all within the buildable area, not necessarily within the view shed, because the slopes that are to the west, that are the orange hatching in my memo, I don't know if you've seen a markup there. That's the buildable within view shed area. And it makes sense because you can really see that bridge from the road. This spot is actually kind of tucked in right below that, the slopes beginning. And again, it's cleared, and there's 2 stands of trees that actually are still gonna remain between the road and this location, like 1,000 feet of difference and of distance as well. So we were standing there, Richard can speak to it, and if you look towards the road and you could see the road through a little bit through the trees because they were leaf off. I think with leaves on in the full leaf on condition, you wouldn't be able to see the road, so the road would be able to see the house. But Richard, you want to take it? You were there, so.
If you took the position of looking at the proposed building site from the road, you would see a house there in the wintertime, part of it anyway, part would be hidden by a tree line. There's two tree lines intercepting the site, so it's pretty hard to see through both of those. But you could see some of it, but it's a long distance. And the existing house is much more visible anyway. I mean, that's a big house and barns up on the top of the hill. You would notice that way before you would notice any new construction out to the left. It's very pretty property and very wide open. And it's typical rolling hills and mountainside. But I don't think a house would make much of a difference in the view shed right on that site. The other part of the site visit was that we tried to figure out, you see that yellow line there going through here? That's a proposed driveway once they requested a building permit. And that would have to cross, if they chose to go that way, they would have to cross an intermittent stream. And Steve Marino suggested a method of doing that, which would be like a crushed culvert, a big one. And then you can just put gravel over the top of that and make it easily cross the stream without disturbing the wetland very much at all. So that those solutions were worked out. And
So
so,
there would be a wetland permit through you if it comes to that. If they actually move ahead and propose a driveway there, it would obviously require a wetlands permit because it's crossing a.
but there are other options to make a driveway if they wanted to.
Right, then that would move the house closer to the road.
I know.
Yeah, sorry, I know, I'm just reiterating what Steve said in his memo too.
Right.
But
Just to clarify though, the application is for a subdivision. It's not for a
Right.
building or any of that.
Yep.
We just have, our main thing is to make sure that there is a buildable location on the newly created parcel.
And for
Who
purposes of
knows when
seeker,
or if they'll build on it.
Right, we're just looking.
we're assuming one single family residence for purposes of seeker as well. And this possible location is what, we're kind of assuming as like the action. But again, it could change, but I think the applicant's amenable to having this on the plat. If I'm not mistaken. But we
Yeah.
can talk through that.
Ish.
Yeah, so,
But
but that's the big new comment was just addressing the sidewalk and the visibility. The other thing was the wetlands comments from Steve. That pond that's there is pretty much a man-made pond. It's fed by a bunch of pipes that come off the hill to the north. That just come out of the ground. So we don't really know where they originate, but it's collecting runoff from, I assume, the rest of the farm. There's a siphon, like a drain pipe in the pond that once the water gets to a certain level, it falls through and then it goes into the stream. So it was running when we were there, the stream was flowing. It's not a very big stream. It's, like you said in the comments, any crossing of that would require a wetlands permit. So I think the recommendation I would make is whenever we are to move forward with any type of resolution on a preliminary, is to include a condition that that would be required, a wetlands permit for any crossing. And the other item that I flagged in the memo was with regard to endangered species, although the New York State mapping and database don't show anything, the federal does, and bog turtle, no surprise, shows up. So does the bat species. So I think I know about tree clearing that we're all familiar with to be put on a plat. And if the board is willing, or if they're interested to address the bog turtle thing, that could be done as part of a wetlands permit in the future. If they are to cross that stream, just do a quick assessment for that. Is it bog turtle habitat? Steve Marino doesn't think it is, based on his expertise. So those are the two big updates for me. I think as far as tonight, we were going to continue the hearing and talk about the comments, and then if there was maybe we could next month discuss concluding seeker, have a draft determination of significance, negative declaration for review at that point, and then possibly a resolution on the subdivision plan. But
Okay.
gotta open it here.
Thank you. We're in a public hearing. We left it up, so I don't think a motion is required. Are there any comments from anyone here? Anyone online have comments on this? Okay, do we want to continue the public meeting because there's new information coming in next month? Or do we want to close the public hearing?
I mean, we've had two so far, no comments. Probably be an additional closing at this point.
Okay, why don't we do that? Can I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Adam?
All in favor? Aye. So we'll close this public hearing and we will see you here next month.
Is there anything else we need to do? Any referrals or anything?
There was a referral to the county, but we haven't heard back, but it's likely gonna be a no authority response, because that's what they do on subdivisions like this. CAC might be talking about this too at tomorrow's meeting, because they have. Margaret gave me a heads up that they were gonna have some thoughts on this one as well.
okay, so we'd be looking for resolution and approval next month, most likely.
We can.
So what are the-
Joe and I can have drafts to
Okay.
consider, but yeah,
Yeah, well, that's all I can ask for.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next matter is continuation of Salo. Good, how are you doing?
Wow. I know we're
Pronounce that correctly?
solo.
Solo.
Yeah, it's easier to say than it is to spell.
Yeah.
I have a pile of slips. I know we're
Okay, thank you.
without secretary. So no major updates on our end. We did circulate prior to this meeting a signage package that is not necessarily a formal portion, formal part of this application, more for informational purposes. My understanding is that it is all designed within the code. There's no need for variances or applications there. But again, it's not part of this formal process. So happy to talk to it a little bit if you have questions on it.
Anybody?
No, it does look nice.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Yeah,
Simple, straightforward.
This is for a special use permit.
this is for a special use permit. That's correct.
Time of
Yes.
year, okay.
Do you have anything, Aaron?
So, yeah, a site that had a special use permit previously approved for a property management company, and now they want to change it to the financial services firm, Edward Jones. They're really not proposing any changes to the property. The parking lot's going to remain 11 spaces. They've shown that they have enough parking for employees and customers, which are going to be staggered on like an appointment type arrangement. No changes really to the exterior, like no changes to the footprint of the building. They're gonna dress up the building a little bit, do some whitewashing brick, I think is what you mentioned last time.
Mhm.
On the site, there's one, just with regard to the code, I think you're not allowed more than 2 signs.
Okay.
Just take a look at the code. I think the board can comment on the sign presentation as far as what they think of it, but it's a building permit issue, it's a code enforcement thing. But it is part of the site plan review, and you technically are reviewing the site plan and a special permit. The site plan is the survey that's not changing. But the code's pretty clear about no more than 2 signs. And I think you're showing 3, including the one that's hanging off that little hanging thing in the front.
Mhm.
So just keep that in mind. We did make the referral to the county last month. We haven't heard back yet. The 30 days hasn't elapsed yet. But the first time this application went through for the other use, they came back with a matter of local concern, no comments. So, we did work on a resolution for tonight that's kind of has a condition about, the county comes back with comments, we're not done. If you want to consider that, I'll let Joe speak to it a little bit.
Yeah, so the purpose, you'll recall, of going through this process was to expand the special permit, not really in terms of intensity at all, as Aaron has explained, but literally the language of the special permit in the previous approval was tailored specifically to the tenancy that was proposed. And I think the board, its wisdom, thought it made more sense to have it be something that could run with the land with respect to professional offices, so long as it had all those same limitations and impacts, et cetera. So the resolution that was prepared has all of those same conditions. And it has a condition in it that says that if that the approval is conditioned upon there either being no timely response from the county, if they don't answer within 30 days, which I think ends the 4th or 5th. Then the resolution would take effect and that condition will be met. If the county does answer, in all likelihood, they will say it's a matter of local concern, in which case the condition says, again, the resolution will take effect. If by some chance the county had comments on it, it allowed the condition as written, allows for it to be before the board one more time to see whether the board wants to incorporate any of those comments. So as an accommodation to the applicant, it's a relatively, we're in a public hearing process, so we'll see, but I think it's a relatively non-controversial matter that we think for the sake of the municipal economy makes sense to clean up the special permit and move this along. So we prepared that resolution for tonight if you're inclined to act on it.
Thoughts on that?
I mean, I thought the resolution looked fine. I had a couple of like typos.
Yeah, I'm
We can
not
talk about
surprised.
it after.
Yeah.
Maybe we see if there's any public comment. We can
But yeah.
talk about that.
Like,
Yeah, we're in a public hearing. Any, Howard?
I just wanted to double check, no parking in front of the building, is that correct?
That is correct, yes. Yeah, and that's actually a DOT mandated regulation, which we're obviously not proposing to change, but
Because there was parking before, when it was a grocery store and so on, they did park there at one time.
They were
And,
never allowed to though.
Yeah,
Was
my
never-
never address that. It was
Yeah.
illegal at the time.
No, just-
Yeah.
just asking this question,
Mhm.
no parking will be allowed on the 44th side of the front of the building, and you're telling me that's correct?
that is correct. Yep.
Fine.
People
Thank you.
parked on the Mapplethorpe side as well. And
Yeah.
they have a parking lot now, so we won't have that problem.
It's a much improved parking lot. over the years.
But that was actually on the highway side. The parking lot is not
I
on.
remember, I used to park there.
And I think it was because it was a deli, right?
It was
Yeah,
a deli,
down and
and people
out.
were stopping.
Yeah.
for sandwiches.
Newspaper.
Edwards Jones has promised not to be big.
Yeah, I don't think it's gonna
Unfortunately.
Well, that's not good for business.
really match up with the clientele on this that we use.
Okay,
I mean, if someone does that, the first thing they'll say when you walk in, please park in the back.
right. Well, there are a lot of emergencies in your business now, so, any other comments, questions? Okay, so why don't we, I'm sorry, oh, anybody online? Thank you. Jacob, anything? Margaret? Okay. Why don't we, can I have a motion to close the, public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, unanimous.
Did we motion to open the public hearing?
It was a continuation, I believe.
No.
No, there wasn't. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was a continuation. Do we need to go back? Okay.
I thought-
Zoop. We have a motion to open that public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
in favor? Aye,
Aye.
okay. And I think the motion to close it stands. Or we
Well, yeah,
repeat
but
it?
ask the question again.
Any questions, comments? Okay. So is the meeting closed or do you want me to ask? Okay. All right. We move on. Thank you very
We have to
much.
Close it
Yeah.
now? Now
We-
you have to
Close
close
it
it.
down.
Now you have to close it.
Okay, can I have a motion?
Motion to close.
All in favor?
Aye.
The meeting is really closed.
Double
Okay.
closed.
And so does the resolution need a motion to pass? Or is,
And we're ready.
On the record, any comment? I mean, it was kind of put together pretty quickly this afternoon, but, I think
I
the
think
one
it's-
thing I thought maybe we could add to it was this condition would be just complying with the signage section of the code. And put them on notice that that's something that we,
That and this issue on the, if we hear back.
Yeah, but that's already,
Okay.
I think that's a good condition.
Yeah.
Aaron.
And then whatever typos there were. And
It was, yeah, it was just a little like missing a,
We can approve it with those
subject to
conditions,
condition.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'd like a motion to approve the resolution with the conditions outlined here. Could I have a
So
motion?
moved.
Second? All in favor?
All right.
Aye.
so just be aware,
Who
let that
seconded?
date pass. I
Adam.
mean, you know,
for the,
for the county.
yeah.
And that's when it becomes effective. So no,
Understood.
yeah.
do you know, I don't know exactly what date it was submitted to county.
I assume, I think it was.
Fourth of the
The
fifth.
fourth was the meeting.
So the fifth.
Friday the
I think
fifth.
it was the day after, but
Okay.
Susan's not here to ask because she handled that.
Understood.
Thank you very much.
I appreciate it.
Yep, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have a great night.
You too. Looking forward to seeing the changes there.
Yes, I'm looking forward to getting started.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, the clear matter.
I believe so. Yeah.
Ready? Good evening. Where do we stand here?
We're gonna get started.
All right, could I actually?
Please come
sit?
sit.
Come
This
sit
is
down.
just so exciting. I've never sat at
really?
Sorry about that.
Oh,
Jennifer Van Tile. As you know, it was a month ago when the board passed a resolution of preliminary approval and required certain important things, such as the preparation of a declaration of deed restriction to be filed in the clerk's office that would be enforceable by the town as well as the residents lot owners within the subdivision. That's been prepared. It's been reviewed by your attorney, and I'll let him speak to that. It also required a number of notes to be placed on the plat, and those all have been placed on the plat. And I'll let your planner comment on whether they're sufficient or not, but before we put them on the plat, we actually sent them to the planning consultant and the attorney just to make sure they were worded correctly. So at this point, we believe that we are ready for a resolution of final subdivision approval. There are a couple of conditions that need to be met, and I will say to you that they have been met in the sense that Mr. Clear has paid the $17,650, $16,000 of which is the recreation fee. So that has been paid, and he has a receipt for that, which I can submit to the board tonight. And we have also, apparently, there was some kind of mix-up, and Mr. Clear was not getting regular bills for escrow amounts. The last bill he received was on December 30th, and he paid that on January 7th. And since that time, he hasn't received any bills. But he has prepared a letter, the form of which has been reviewed by council, and he has filed that with the bookkeeper, the town clerk, and with I honestly didn't know who to send it to, since there isn't a planning board secretary now, right? But I can hand it in tonight to you. And the only thing that's different than what is proposed in the resolution is the resolution proposes that the bills be sent to the architect, Jacob Harden, who's on Zoom without a picture. I suggest that we do it. Mr. Clear has always gotten the request for escrow replenishment. See, Mr. Clear doesn't pay the bills directly because that wouldn't be appropriate for an applicant to be paying consultants directly. So what happens when a bill comes in, I spoke to the bookkeeper this morning, is she does two things with the bill. She forwards it to the town board, and the town board actually pays the bill and then gets reimbursed by escrow. But she also sends a copy to the planning board secretary, who then notifies the applicant that additional escrow is needed. Usually a substantial amount of escrow is deposited, so it lasts for several billing cycles, but hasn't replenished. So there's never been a problem before with Mr. Clear paying any of the bills. And so we do have that letter, which I can offer to you this evening. This is an original letter. I have several copies.
Jennifer, just to be clear, what you're suggesting is you want the resolution to say that the final billing will go directly to Mr. Clear.
Yes, instead of to Jacob, because I thought that might be helpful, but I think since the system has worked before, going right to
It's up to the board, but
Tim Clear, yeah. So the board could do whatever it chooses.
Yeah. Requires payment within 30 days.
Yes, 30 days of billing. Okay, so I do have some extra copies here. These are scans, so they're not quite so neat. Two more here, so. And then as for the receipt, a copy of the receipt that was,
And the clerk confirmed it too.
yes. Yeah, the bookkeeper confirmed it
Do you
also.
have that back?
I don't need it back,
I
but
think we should keep a set, just because we don't have a secretary.
Yeah, so
so with that, I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have, but that's it. We believe that we've done everything that you required and would respectfully request that you consider the resolution.
Thank you. Joe?
So, to set the table for what you might do tonight, if you consider, the final plat approval, the way that works is that if a final plat is submitted that is in substantial conformance with the preliminary plat you approved and meets all the conditions, of that preliminary plat approval, then no additional public hearing is required. You get sign off on that from your consultants that those conditions have been met, and you can act. So first of all, you are in a position to act should you choose to act. I did see both the letter promising the payment of fees, and as Ms. Ventile has relayed, and as this board knows, there is no history of a failure to pay those fees. I'm relatively confident from my perspective that is fine. I did also see, obviously, it was a matter of significant public concern, and for this board, the restriction on further subdivision, which is represented in a deed restriction, which Ms. Ventile and I worked on together. I have reviewed that document. It incorporates all of those non-subdivision conditions and requirements that were detailed in the approval. And it also has a provision that entitles both impacted neighbors and the town of Washington to enforce that deed restriction should in the future it ever be violated. That deed, that restriction will be recorded in the Dutchess County Clerk's office against title, so that it will run with the land and any land that goes out of this property to other buyers and takers in perpetuity. So the protection that the board sought is in place, in my opinion, and I think those were the things that from a legal perspective, those were the conditions that I needed to review, and Aaron can talk to you about the others.
Yeah, so I have it in my memo, I have a summary table on the back end that went over each condition that was part of that preliminary approval, whether or not I believe it's been satisfied, and then the reference to where you can find it on the plan. So all those notes that we have in that about no further subdivision, about the tree clearing restrictions, about the building envelopes being there, all that stuff is being shown on the plans. The notes are referenced here for you. Regarding the fees, I'm comfortable with, obviously the bill for this month hasn't been issued yet, because this meeting is part of that, so, but the latest, the February period was issued, and I did give the applicant heads up about what that amount was, so the town is processing it now currently. They don't have approval from the town board yet to get it paid, but they've paid all the other bills over the past 7 months or so, whatever, it's been 8 months. So I'm not concerned about them meeting that condition. So yeah, there's a resolution ready on final approval, and what that basically does is it would allow the final plat to be signed by the chair and then filed.
Could also be signed, I don't know how long the chair is out of town, but it could be signed by the acting chair.
Sure, I think be available to sign it. I don't imagine it needs to be signed tonight, does it?
Yep.
We always like to be ready.
Okay. Anything else? Anyone?
No.
Anyone on the board? Comments, questions?
No.
Okay, so we will, let's go.
Question?
We're not in a public
Building
meeting.
envelopes.
We're not in a public meeting, Howard.
It's the AC, not public. That's, I'm not gonna argue with you.
I have a motion to approve the resolution.
Someone.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, it's carried unanimously.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
And again, we appreciate all the time that you devoted and your consultants devoted to a review of this project. I think it sets a good standard for the
I
town.
think it's been a year, not 7 months.
Yeah.
Well, since the
Well, yes, the whole thing was a year.
yeah, sorry,
Yeah,
so
we-
July was when they came back in with the new stuff.
Yeah, we appreciate professionalism that you managed.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you. And again, it's so nice to come here when it's light out. It is.
It is nice.
Yes, well, that's even better.
Okay, I believe that covers our agenda. Are there,
Are you going to leave that for signature, or? I have it here.
Yeah, I think we should probably make that some bit to signature.
We can check these. We don't need those.
Oh, I don't need
I don't
them,
know.
but you probably don't need them.
That's, yeah, I wasn't sure.
We have copies, right?
Well, we have a pile of things here. that
We have a
we're-
copy just to, for our records.
The original copy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
why don't
We
you
have all
take
kinds of
the
stuff to-
original, because that's, I think you still have the original. These are scanned copies. I take
Yeah, why don't we leave for Susan, if that's okay with you?
That's fine.
Okay.
Where does she usually go? Is it this area or is there another office that she goes to?
I think, I don't know. I think it's probably,
Could you just check and see if that's the original signature one of the letter?
I
Yeah.
think that
I think
was.
that's-
Okay, so why don't you keep that,
Okay.
because that's, you should really have that. The scanned copies were sent to the clerk, the bookkeeper, and to Mr. Ariel, and I think to Aaron, copied Aaron too, so they have it. And the receipt, that is a copy, so, but the bookkeeper could confirm that that was paid.
The clerk confirmed that too.
Oh, she did, okay. Terrific, well, again, thank you for your
Thank
courtesy and
you.
professionalism.
Thank you very
you.
much.
Appreciate it. Where would you like me to leave
Uh,
this?
Yeah, just leave it right here. It's
Just-
fine.
Okay, there's a
Thank you.
permanent marker attached to it, just.
Okay, we'll take care of
The
it.
Mylar is in.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thank you, Howard.
Are there any other matters for the board tonight?
We have the killer road.
We don't. It's off the
Oh, it's
agenda for
off.
It's
tonight.
gonna be tabled to next month.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
did issue comments on that my understanding is the consultant for the town board is gonna respond to. So we should have more information.
Yeah, I also asked, and Susan asked that someone from the town board attend. I think Jill was gonna come. I don't think this discussion necessarily begins, certainly doesn't end with just an engineer.
No,
I think there's some broader issues that we want to take into consideration.
And I think
Thank
this
you.
area will require public hearings, right, or not?
yes.
It seems likely, and that's part of what Aaron's request for additional information is, your provision on scenic roads has an administrative procedure that the town can just act on without a public hearing if the kinds of things being done are, and it's got definitions like ordinary routine maintenance, et cetera. There's a specific provision or a specific clause in there that talks about the circumstances where a public hearing needs to be held by the planning board. And one of the words in there is widening, and it appears as though there's at least some widening going on here. But that's, whether it falls into that category, and I suspect it does, will be dependent on the additional information that.
So this Colon Road matter has been going on for over a year at the town board. And when it first came up, they were going to do some remedial work, but then they decided to have an engineering study done. And there was an engineering study done, and they asked for, implementation and that bids and stuff like that. So it took forever to get to this stage.
Yeah.
So they now seem to have a plan of what to do. And there was a lot of public input into that. I went to some town board meetings, and there was a lot of public interest in how that would be resolved, because a lot of people lived on that road are in favor of a scenic road and a dirt road, and they don't want to see that disturbed. But there's a maintenance issue of the road as well, so I think the town board has figured out a solution here.
Yes.
I'm not sure why we're looking at
The code.
It's what your code just.
because of that language of widening.
Yeah, and potentially other implications in the way the code is
I
written.
can follow up with that.
Yeah.
No, so
Unless you wanna wait till
how are we supposed to act?
Yeah, we're gonna,
Yeah.
we're gonna. The other thing I wanted to bring up, Doug, while you're here, this clear matter exposed some discussion around the consistency between the comprehensive plan and the zoning code that we would like Susan wanted to bring forward to the town board for further discussion. So that's something that you've already.
There's a lot of areas where that gap gets wider than it needs to be.
Yeah, in this instance, the comprehensive plan stated something pretty clearly, but there was a lot of discussion in terms of the zoning regulations supporting that. So we'd like to have that discussion. Anything else? Anybody else? All right, I would like a motion to close this meeting.
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Susan, no one missed you more than me.
Nice job.